Just a reminder, you can catch me recording this podcast live on AMP. AMP is a new live radio app that lets you call in and chat with me in person while recording. Get the app on Apple's App Store and make sure you follow me at John Middlekauff to get notified when I go live. What is going on, everybody? John Middlekauff, 3 and Out Podcast. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify. You guys know the drill. As well as if you're watching this on YouTube, the Volumes YouTube page, smash that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a comment, share all the content with your friends. A lot coming up football-wise. We will dive into off the top, starting with the Buffalo Bills. But before we do you want to go to an NFL game this fall? Do you want to go to a college game? Do you live in the South, want to get to an SEC game? I know I do. Eventually in my life. Still haven't been. Here's what I need you to do. Grab your smartphone, go to your app store, and download the Gametime app. Happens to be the fastest growing ticket app in America, and it's the official ticketing app of this podcast. So go do that right now, and when you sign up, use the promo code JOHN, J-O-H-N, just my name, and get $20 off your first pair of tickets. So you want to go to a baseball game this summer, a football game this fall, a concert, a comedy show. Check out Taylor Swift. Hear her concert's pretty entertaining. Well, if you want to go, promo code John, $20 off. Hammer that promo code, baby. I got your back. Don't even need a thank you. Like I always say, just use that promo code. That's the best gift you can ever give me. I appreciate every single one of you that have used it, and so does Gametime. Keep hammering that, downloading that app. I want to start with the Bills because they made some headlines today. They extended a player. They signed another player. I think it goes back to last year when they gave a lot of money to Von Miller, which I thought was pretty extreme. But in fairness to them, before he got injured, he was having a fantastic season. And I think the lasting memory that we all have in 2000, I guess it was technically in 2023, but of the 2022 Buffalo Bills, who have now established themselves as, one of the powerhouse teams in the league, was them getting worked by the Bengals, physically kind of tossed around. Now, I follow the Bills very closely. Love Sean McDermott, known him for a long time. Don't know Josh Allen, but California, Central Valley guy, I root for him. They're a fun team to watch. He's a very explosive, fascinating player, right? Like most people, I thought it was crazy to draft him that high, and they haven't been proven just right. I mean, they found themselves a superstar player. But in a playoff game, they got shoved around by the Cincinnati Bengals. There's no really way around it. And I think they deserve credit because sometimes teams, when they get worked in the playoffs, I think we can look back and look what they've done moving forward and go, they're just not building this thing the right way. They really are, right? They continually double down on the defensive line. And it's one area still left in the game of football where you can be really physical and you can kind of set the tone for your team. And I saw it with the 49ers the last couple of years. I saw the Cowboys give the 49ers everything they could handle. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles built the thing at the line of scrimmage, right? You look at the Kansas City Chiefs, offensive and defensive line. When you invest in the line of scrimmage and not at some auxiliary quote-unquote positions, it's an area you can separate yourself and really determine the team's toughness. And the Bills have attempted to do that. Did they give Von Miller a tad bit too much money? Yeah, probably. Ed Oliver extending him, signing Leonard Floyd. Obviously, they've invested a lot of draft picks at the top, 2 years ago with, I think, their first and second round pick with the defensive line. They are attempting to do everything humanly possible to be a physical team and not get shoved around again like they did last season. Now it's just on their personnel moves. Like, did they draft, sign, and extend the right players? Because I can never fault you for the mindset of going, heavy in terms of your salary cap space and your resources with the offensive and defensive line. It just comes down to, did you do it with the right players, right? The Denver Broncos. I understand why they invested in an offensive guard and offensive tackle. The question is McGlinchey worth that much money? At least with Von Miller, when the Buffalo Bills, gave him a large contract last year, I think over $50 million guaranteed, first ballot Hall of Famer. And when he's healthy, as you saw last year or 2 years ago with the Rams in their Super Bowl push. And then early on last year, he's still a difference-making player. And Floyd can be an extra piece. Ed Oliver can be a really good, third, fourth guy on your defensive line. The price of admission now for these players, it's not cheap, right? We saw Javon Hargrave, who the 49ers, he's on his third contract, get 4 years, $80 million, and 40 of it guaranteed. So when you extend, pay, sign these guys as free agents, or obviously want to draft really good players, you usually have to draft them high. Usually have to pay a lot of money. So I understand what the Bills are doing, and I commend their mindset. Now it's just going to come down to they have the right players, right? Did they go in on the right guys? Because they're going to be held to one standard. Can you beat the Chiefs and can you beat the Bengals in the playoffs? And we'll see how this Aaron Rodgers thing kind of comes to fruition, but can you hang with him, right? Because you're going to go after, Mac Jones. We've seen what the Bills do with the New England Patriots, right? And even last year, like that Miami game, one of the most bizarre wins of the season, right? Remember, they outgained them, the time of possession, the play disparity. But I think the Bills clearly are better than the Miami Dolphins. It's just going to be, can they get after Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and now Aaron Rodgers, and any other really good quarterbacks? We know there are a ton in the AFC, but they're going to be judged in January. Because last year, right, I had high hopes, and then they got killed in the second round. And it feels like they've taken a step back. And I think sometimes, you don't have to overreact to a loss. But, like the Eagles, there's no reason for them to overreact to a crazy loss in the Super Bowl. Now, if you're the Bills, like, do you have enough toughness? And they keep signing defensive linemen. They keep extending defensive linemen. So I do think they are going about it the right way. Now it's just going to come down to their head coach. Here's the other thing. Sean McDermott has gotten back to his roots. He's calling the defense. So they get rid of Leslie Frazier. He was the fall guy last year. So does Sean McDermott make an incremental difference for them from a toughness standpoint, from a defensive scheme standpoint, and they don't get worked when it matters this time around? If you're watching the NBA Finals, it's really a pretty fascinating two-star players going up against each other, right? Jimmy Butler was kind of discounted over the years until he got to Miami, right? It was like, how good is he? Chicago Bulls kind of sold on him. Then he went to Minnesota, and it was like, he was too tough on Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns. Then he goes to Philadelphia, and they essentially choose Ben Simmons over him. We can relitigate that all we want, but that's just a fact. And Pat Riley went all in, and he's been rewarded. Now, I think we can argue how good Jimmy Butler is relative to the league during the regular season, but there is not a regular season that means less in 2023 than the NBA. And Jimmy Butler, if you just judge him on his playoff performance, he's easily a top 10 player. And Nikola Jokic, the Joker as he goes by, is clearly a transcendent talent. So in the NBA, it's very clear it's a star-driven league. It's about getting the right stars and then just going all in around the guy. And Denver's a good example. They've gone all in around the Joker, won multiple MVPs, and now 3 wins away from an NBA Finals. The Heat have done it a little NFL style. They got a bunch of undrafted free agents. Bam is obviously a really good player, but some other random guys, and they just kind of make their hay on coaching, culture, and just Jimmy leading the charge. Not always the prettiest thing, but it works. I heard Coward kind of compare it to the Patriots because historically New England, with some of those Tom Brady teams, player for player, were not always the best, and honestly, rarely the best team in the league, top to bottom talent-wise. They won with clearly Brady, but coaching, discipline, execution, toughness, mental toughness, kind of wearing your ass down, ultimately making you make a mistake that they were not going to make in the biggest moments. And what's cool about it is, like, in pro sports, you go as far, especially in basketball and football. In basketball, as your star player. In football, as your quarterback. And I saw a headline today that they must have had a golf tournament in Los Angeles. Brandon Staley talked about the ongoing contract talks with Justin Herbert. We have talked before about the ongoing contract talks with Joe Burrow. And I think all you want in the NFL when you land a star player, and ideally it's at quarterback, but it could be Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa, it could be Travis Kelce, it could be Chris Jones, it could be, we go around the league and pick out star players. Lane Johnson, Jason Kelce is the total package. Like that's what you're looking for, right? A guy that you can pay a premium, who can become your leader, and then you just basically build around him. And in football, if it's not the quarterback, and if it's, an offensive tackle, a defensive pass rusher, a wide receiver, a tight end, you want him to be the total package. And when you look at the Chargers and the Bengals, like they should thank their lucky stars because they got two guys. Like whatever the Denver Nuggets pay Joker, what they've paid him so far and what they will inevitably pay him over the next 7-8 years, it's a discount. Right? Whatever the Heat have paid Jimmy Butler, it's clearly not enough, right? What he means to them in winning at the highest levels. Now, Joe Burrow has accomplished more than Justin Herbert, right? Bunch of playoff wins. Herbert still doesn't have one. He's only been in the one playoff game, and they lost it in the crazy comeback to the Jags. But I'm a huge believer in Justin Herbert. I understand. I don't want to say reservations, but it's easy to push back when you haven't proven it. If you watch football on a weekly basis and you also factor in that his head coach is Brandon Staley and defensively they have been very hit or miss over the last couple of years, right? When it's mattered the most. Like I can't put it all on Justin Herbert. Now, to get over the hump, he's going to have to be really good in the playoffs. Joe Burrow has proven that. But one thing Joe Burrow's had going for him is his defense the last couple of years when it's been nut cutting time has come to play. But overall, either way, like I'm going all in on both guys. And I think both franchises should feel very, very good about it. One of the stories right now coming out of the 49ers, now he's not a quarterback and he's already under contract. I obviously haven't been to a practice so far the last couple of weeks, but all the reports, Anthony Lynn, I think, spoke last week. Christian McCaffrey is like a man amongst boys out there. Now, granted, Nick Bosa is not there. He's allowed to stay in Florida and train. Trent Williams is not there. Debo's, kind of working on the side. But the standard in which Christian McCaffrey, and really the moment they traded for him up until really today, in which he operates on a daily basis, is he's underpaid. Because his effort, his just mindset on the practice field, the standard he sets for all the young guys looking around. And when you draft star players, right, or when you draft a player and then they become a star, ideally, and this is why character matters so much, it's why that we question, the Kyler Murrays of the world. Like, can you afford to put all your chips in the middle of the table on your star quarterback and pay him all this money when he's not the hardest working guy in the building? When he's not the guy that sets the standard for your entire building of just excellence? Anything less is unacceptable. Tom Brady did, Peyton Manning did, Drew Brees did. Clearly guys around the league like Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow. I think Justin Herbert is going to fall under that umbrella. We've seen what Jalen Hurts means to the Eagles in terms of the way he conducts himself, the way he works. It is so important. And I think sometimes it can feel, I don't want to say overblown or overdone, but we talk so much around the draft about character. Or when question marks become available through a trade, right? Or available as a free agent. Is it worth it? And I think the teams that circumvent the standard get themselves in positions where they regret it. And I think the NFL is very, very lucky right now to have just such high-level guys in the league. When you look at it, and I remember talking to Coward about this last year. I forget exactly what we were talking about, but I remember going through the all-pro list, the first and second team, and I don't have it off the top of my head, but I think there might have been one guy who would be quote-unquote considered a questionable character. The overwhelming majority of them were like super high-level guys. And you want to win in this league, and if you look at the teams that are winning right now, like ultimately the Cowboys, their success the last couple of years, this isn't like the 1992 White House Cowboys, with drugs and the strippers and the, all the craziness going on off the field. Look at their squad. Pretty high-level group of dudes, right? Obviously the Eagles, pretty well together bunch. The Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills. This is for the most part. I'm not saying every guy is some choir boy, but it's just high-level dudes. that are clearly really good players. Because it's a talent league. You got to have, there's a standard in which to be a really good player, you have to have a prerequisite of physical ability, playmaking ability, production. But most of these guys, and this is the one thing, the Patriots were the closest to the line of like, God, they got a lot of overachievers, but they had enough high-end talent always, whether it was Brady, whether it was Gronk, whether it was Will Fork, whoever, Logan Mankins, that, this league is, I think sometimes we don't give the proper justice to the importance of high-level dudes. And I've said this forever, when guys get in trouble, that the NFL, those guys are the minority in the NFL. The majority of the guys in the league are just high-level guys, right? And I'd say the majority of really good players are really high-level guys. And last but not least, talking about not high-level, I just do not understand in 2023, with all the information we have, everything is digital now. There is a Colts player right now who supposedly is not a star player, but he is a guy that, according to reports, NFL fans will know who he is. At the time of recording this, I do not have a name. I just have the headline for the story that there is a player being investigated by the league for extensive gambling. And it's going to come out and some of the media will push back. It's hypocritical to not know. The players, just like the owners, owned the revenue of these gambling companies. And because of the integrity of what is going on with the NFL, you're not allowed to gamble on football. We can argue and attempt to litigate over social media or text message or whatever, whether it's fair or not. But the reality is those are the rules. So I don't get how guys, especially now, everything is tracked. When you put your name in, they know who you are. They can track where you are. So some of these guys, like with the Lions, I think Jameson Williams was gambling on college. Well, they can tell where you are. Anyone watch these murder shows? Now with our phone, they know everywhere we're going. So I just, this notion, I saw either Florio or someone wrote earlier today that maybe there was some question in whether the information to the players was set in stone early on, like in meetings or whatever, that you are not allowed to do this. I guess there are people that like it's not being articulated or streamlined well enough to really hammer home. Listen, in my experience, well before gambling was legal, sports-wise throughout the country like it is now, I thought it was pretty clear. It was well laid out when I was with the Eagles. So to me, there are no excuses. And I don't understand if you're a player, even if you're like on a veteran minimum salary, making $1 million, how it's worth it for you to gamble when you know the repercussions, right? You know, and especially now you've seen Calvin Ridley, that was a year ago now. And I love to gamble. But if you told me that I was not allowed to gamble and that was the only way I could keep podcasting and making a living, I would not gamble. It would be pretty easy. I'm not saying I would like it. I enjoy gambling on golf. I really do. And I can't wait to gamble on the U.S. Open here in 2 weeks. But if that was part of the stipulation of my job and the success financially I was having, I would easily be able to slow it down. Now, I would understand, and this is why I think you've seen some instances in college baseball where gambling has become a problem. It's hard. Like, you can't pay off. There is no amount of money you can bet to get like in the pocket of some star NFL or basketball player. They make too much money. It's just impossible. Why? Right? It's why historically the referees have been bought off. You can't buy off a coach or a player. They're making too much cash. Same with college football, same with the NFL. Where in college baseball, okay, you got a coach, making $300,000-400,000. You could $50,000 to him is a lot, right? $50,000 to some star wide receiver isn't that much money. You're basically just gambling because it's entertainment, and I totally understand it. But given what's on the line, it just doesn't make any sense. So I can't fathom having being that stupid, really, to gamble on sports when it's well laid out in front of you. You know the consequences. You have seen guys get in trouble. And listen, even if you like gambling, you got some coin, what are you betting? $5,000 a game? Like, how is that worth it when you're making at minimum, a minimum salary is 7, 8, 900 grand. And that's assuming you're on a rookie contract. If you're on a second contract, that thing's starting at 7 figures. So these guys, man, I think everyone around the league now has absolutely zero excuse to not understand what's on the line, but also understand that when you use your phone, you are being tracked. These companies, there is a lot of red tape surrounding all this. We're still very, very new in this legal sports gambling in a lot of these states. They're going to follow the rules. It is just not worth it for them to cut corners or have something shady happen and then get their license removed in a state or have something, take on and incur a big fine, right? There's no point in doing that. That's why they are being extra cautious, and they're even more likely to forward every single questionable name transaction immediately to the leagues that they are in business with, i.e. the same as the players. So these whoever, I'm not going to, no free ads here, but when you're in business with these leagues, the players benefit from that too, because there's a revenue sharing. So really just shake my head at these guys' stupidity.